Hi, Andre. Nice to see you. Thank you very much for coming and for agreeing to help me. Well, let's start with some sort of an introduction, with you saying a few words about yourself. What do you do for a living, and what do your responsibilities include? Sure. Currently, I work as a senior systems analyst at Ozon. This is our pretty popular e-commerce in the Commonwealth of Independent States. Today, it is not the most popular in terms of the number of orders and clients. If we talk about the metrics, our direct competitor, whom everyone knows, is ahead of us. But as for the software, it is, in my opinion, more advantageous than that of our competitors. So we are betting on the fact that we are e-commerce number one in the CIS space. Speaking about myself, I work in the analytics department. This is a classic and necessary so-called big data, because in such large companies, it is difficult to do without analytics. And today, Ozon is moving from a monolithic system in software development architecture to microservices. Well, explaining for those who are not quite in the subject of the IT profile, a monolith is an approach to development when you write everything on one sheet of paper continuously, so to speak. Unlike microservices, in a monolith, you do not divide the book into chapters, but write the entire book. Because of this, the speed of development of the product itself increases, and it is just delivered faster. But at the same time, microservices have an important advantage. If we have a division into chapters and we go by content, then we can quickly turn the unnecessary pages over and successfully navigate and look for the problem that has arisen. Let's take a water supply system as an example. In microservices, we divide it into sectors, and when an accident or incident occurs at any stage, we understand where the leak occurred exactly, while in a monolith, more time will be spent searching for an error. And my task is to connect all the databases of newly developed microservices to each other when we move from a monolith to microservices in order to create a complete picture in analytics. Well, in other words, my task is to link microservices and analytics in our department so that this data is valid, accurate, and valuable for the business. All right, so you're basically the connect and link in analytics. Yes, a link between the development teams, because each microservice is a separate team. They develop it in detail, and there is data that is necessary for the entire company, for the business. So there are business customers who, for example, might say, hi, I need to know the average volume for transporting goods and trucks for a certain brand. And we, the analysts, say that the average volume is this. But to answer this way, you need to know the exact microservice in which the logistics department works. That is, to know how it is developed, what data is stored in it, in what form, and bring them to some of our services, which will then perform the calculations. Well, the calculation has to be, of course, correct and fast. In other words, it must be issued immediately. And we, as analysts, architecturally decide how to put this information together, what to use as a DBMS. A DBMS is a database management system, and in simple terms, it is a cart index. And we have to understand how to put data in this cart index so that it can be quickly retrieved and new carts and new shelves can be quickly created. Super. Let's now briefly tell our guys, who probably don't all know in detail, what these professions of systems analyst and business analyst are about. In general, what do they consist of if we break them down into their main functions? Well, analytics is often described as the work of a systems analyst and a business analyst, and the fact that they work together in tandem. But today we must understand that there is a business with its own business processes. For example, an Ozon employee describes the process of issuing goods at an order pickup point. And he writes, for example, first, beep the client's QR code. Second, go to the warehouse. Third, the warehouse will display the goods you need on your data collection terminal. This is what the pickup point employee beeps with. Fourth, do this, and that, and so on. This is a business process, and it will be written by a business analyst. But there's another process that occurs at this time. This is the process of how data is transferred, what service it is transferred to, and what the picture that will be displayed on our employee's screen should look like. And the interaction of these systems with each other is described by a systems analyst. That is, the difference between a systems analyst and a business analyst is that a systems analyst can build different systems and information technology, connect them together, and describe how they exchange data and how this influences the business. If we take, for example, an order for shawarma through an application, then we must understand what kind of shawarma it is, at what point it should be issued, what ingredients the client removed or added. There is a separate system for ordering the shawarma itself and a separate system for issuing it to the client. So they need to be connected and the necessary information must be transferred. If we consider an example from e-commerce, when you click the order button, you must understand that your data that you specified in your personal account, such as your last name, first name, paternal name, your linked bank card, delivery address, etc., has to be transferred between different systems. There is also a shopping cart system in which you add the necessary products and click the order button. There you also specify the pickup point you need, your cart, you link it to the account, and after that the goods are sent to the buyer. And this entire set of data, such as your last name, your order, your pickup points, etc., is transferred to the warehouse. But warehouse workers do not necessarily need to know all the data about you. They only need to know, first, what kind of goods, and second, where are they going. The warehouse itself has its own information system, which is responsible for the placement of goods, in which cell they are located, in which department, and in which sector. Because the warehouse is not your usual home pantry, where there is just a set of things behind the door. It is a huge technical infrastructure in which we must clearly understand where exactly a specific product is located and how to quickly pick it up so that we will not waste our time. And there's not only just one order. Orders come in dozens and hundreds. Therefore, a warehouse employee, on the way to your goods in the warehouse, picks up a large number of other orders and comes to the loading area where everything is packed. And the warehouse employee must put your goods in the right loading area. The warehouse service is responsible for this, and not the order basket, the shopping cart service, which was at the beginning. Then the data must be transferred from the warehouse service to the courier delivery. And there, the only important data will be what kind of goods and where they're going, and also by what date they are needed. There's no need for data, for example, on how much these goods weigh, because there's no business need for it. And the systems analyst works between all these systems, connects them, connects the cars. He indicates what data is transferred, where it is used, who uses it, how it is reflected on your screens, and thus makes the process of delivering goods from all over Russia to Belarus or Armenia or Uzbekistan real. To summarize, the systems analyst is responsible for the interaction of systems with each other, within the company and between companies too. For instance, if you have a service that indicates a currency, you need to understand the currency of the national bank. The national bank has a bank API, application programming interface. That is, there's an opportunity to exchange data between your service and an external one. In this situation, the systems analyst went beyond the company, into the national bank, to get the current rate. Therefore, he builds both exchange systems within the company and interaction with other groups of third companies. For example, if you use the delivery of Russian Post or Belarusian Post, you go beyond the company, so you need to link them. Well, let's follow up again. A systems analyst links the systems together and describes their exchanges. A business analyst indicates in the field that warehouse employee takes this trolley, necessarily metal, 80 by 16 size, walks along the right side of the warehouse, puts on a helmet, and so on. So he's more responsible for the business processes that constantly occur on the ground. He has to describe what is happening exactly, step by step. But this will already be a regulation, and the business process itself will be in the form of a diagram or chart with circles, triangles, and on the basis of this business process, the work regulations at the enterprise will be developed, and the regulations will be your final document. Yes. Great. Look, let's also talk about the following. As far as I know, there are two main terms that both business analysts and systems analysts work with. These are business requirements and business processes. How do they differ and what do they include? What are they? When developing any software or building any company, we must understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. If we consider e-commerce, what are we doing there? We sell goods on the internet and deliver them to customers. It is clear that business requirements in this case are the sale and delivery of goods. Are you talking about business goals and business requirements or what? Yeah, business processes and business requirements. Yeah, the business process is that, for example, today we can click the order button and then various processes will occur in warehouses, processes that were described in the regulations, as I said above. And this is the business process itself. As I answered in the first question, collecting goods in the warehouse is a business process. And for example, for software development, we can have business requirements. What will the business requirements include in this case? For instance, if we're talking about delivery, then the business requirement will be that the goods after clicking the order button should be at the pickup point in 3 days. This will be a business requirement from the customer who orders software. The business requirement is that the goods must be in this place in 3 days. Yes, exactly. 3 days later it arrives, and how we have to deliver it is already a business process. The way we describe the path is a business process. Yeah, exactly. Answering the questions, who does it go to? Here is a courier delivery service, here is a pickup point, here are warehouses, and the business requirement is to deliver the goods on time. That's it. I'd say that's the main difference. Then tell me please a little more about business requirements. It seems to me that business processes are more or less clear. The sequence of actions needs to be written down, then regulations are created and confirmed, and business requirements. Do they have some kind of formalization process? Is there any specific documentation structure? How are these requirements written down? I understand that business requirements are what the customer puts forward as their demands, what requirements the product that, for example, the company is developing has to meet, and what should a business analyst do with them? He needs to understand them, somehow write them down, set the task for the programmers, and so on. How does one technically work with business requirements? Well, if we're talking, for example, about software development and about collecting business requirements for the purpose of development, then in this case, a business analyst or systems analyst begins the so-called collection of requirements for the software being developed. Here we turn to the business, the customer, and ask, what do you need? And for example, there are these requirements at different levels of abstraction. For instance, the highest level of abstraction, if we return to the example with the shawarma restaurant, is, I want the client to be able to order shawarma from the internet. This is a classic high-level business requirement that a systems or business analyst collected there. And then we need to understand, will this be a website or a mobile application? If an application, then for Android or iOS. Then, if we display a menu selection on the main page, should we see the picture itself or not? Should we ask our client in advance at what point he will pick up his shawarma? Should we give the client the opportunity to choose which ingredients he will leave and which he will not? So here in this list of questions, we go lower and lower in levels of abstraction. We already get to such things as, for example, what color will the button be? How will it look like? So it's basically a fragmentation down to the most subtle details. Yes, and here we must take into account that if the first high-level task was simply about the possibility of ordering shawarma on the internet, then at the first level of development, we must provide the ability to order quickly. There should be no picture and no ability to remove ingredients. At this level, we do it accordingly. Additionally, in working with business requirements, a lot depends on money and time. Now, for example, a client comes to us and says, I only have this amount of money. I want to order business requirements. Okay, for this amount of money, we can make the order button and a button remove ingredient or not. And for a different amount of money and time, we can add the choice of the point, for example, or add a function to display in online format the amount of time remaining until your order is ready. And this is, in fact, real formalization. There is also a formalization methodology called MOSCOW. There, each letter is deciphered like M stands for must, then S stands for what's necessary, I guess. Well, yeah, first there is must, then should, meaning what is highly desirable. Well, if must is obligatory, then should is simply necessary. Then I think goes C, which stands for could. This is what generally can be, good to have. And at the end, W stands for will not be, what should be excluded. Well, Nikita gave us the decryption from a theoretical standpoint. Yes, this is absolutely correct. In practice, it often happens like this. Whatever there is money and time for, that is what is developed. If the deadlines in money are limited, then excuse us. We will sort it out according to MOSCOW method, but questions will remain. So finishing with the MOSCOW method, I would like to say the most important thing, that most often we prioritize tasks by the amount of time and money. If you have one amount of money and time, you will get one result for that amount of money and period of time. If you have more money and more time, you will get a different result. It really depends on what does the customer need for his business. If you have a niche of, for example, selling disposable e-cigarettes and you need to enter the market urgently and real quick, then of course you need to get the bare minimum in your requirements and start actively selling these cigarettes right away. Excellent. Let's then also discuss such thing as TOR, terms of reference, because I've heard about this term many times, not only in IT, although it would seem that it's more common in IT, but I've also come across it in the field of copywriting, content making, and so on. Everyone talks about the TOR there. So for our introductory level, can you please tell us, with your experience as a business and systems analyst, what TOR is? What is it exactly, and what is it needed for? Yeah, TOR. There's such a joke in Russian. It's in English, it's without TOR, the result will be unknown. For example, we have a cancel order button. We add it to our product, and we have to understand that this button has to be reflected and processed in business processes, in the fields and in IT, in the company's infrastructure. We click the cancel order button, and the goods, if, for example, they have already arrived at a point where you did not want to pick them up, or if they have not reached the final point yet, then they have to be returned back from where they came. This is done by people who work in warehouses and are responsible for the product return process. Let's call it that. And these guys, again, must take a trolley, bring the goods to a certain zone, and so on. This will be a business process. We will send a task for the information system to collect this product and send it back, because this is a task, and it will be in the form of a document. And this document should combine all these nuances related to the business process and the system process in the IT technology. That is, for instance, you clicked cancel the order, and the money should return to the client through his bank, if, for example, he has already paid for it. And if he has not paid, then they should not. And ultimately, such moments must be taken into account. Plus, we, the company, have to know why you canceled the order. You, as the client, indicate, I canceled the order because I found a cheaper one, and we immediately understand, so our price is not competitive. So we have to somehow change the supplier or find someone cheaper. Or we need to understand, how do others have lower prices? Maybe this is just a competitor playing with us, so that we also reduce the price, sell out our goods, and then the competitor will immediately start selling this product at a higher price. In an ideal world, the TOR combines the business processes in the fields and the exchange of certain microservices with the data between themselves. They interact with each other and give the final result, the cancel order button. And I'm going to add a little of my summary here. On the user side, when we see the cancel order button and click it, everything looks very nice and happens extremely quickly. Now we receive a notification that our request to cancel the order has been accepted and the support service is reviewing it. Then we receive a response from the support team, for example, by email saying, thank you for your feedback, the order has been canceled. If you have an advance payment, then we will return the money. If there was no advance payment, then we would go our separate ways and no questions. And for us, this is all quite simple, good looking, and beautiful. But we have to realize that behind all this, there is this gigantic, painstaking, rigorous work of a business analyst, a systems analyst, and programmers too, who decompose all the goals down to the smallest features and write even the color of each detail, fonts down to every minute and to every second. Yes, and a good TOR also includes the entire scope of work. And there we find out how much we should estimate these system improvements in hours of work and in money. The better the TOR is written, the more accurately we can predict how much time and money we will spend. And the management aspect of the TOR is also substantial, as I said, to determine the team's workload. You mentioned the word managerial. Let's then take our conversation to this managerial level and talk about whether a business or systems analyst is connected in any way with management. What is his role? What are his relationships with managers in companies? And what role do business and systems analysts play in decision making? I will immediately start from the fact that, as we said above, a business analyst is about business and business processes. A systems analyst is more about the systems that operate for the benefit of the business. A business analyst and management are tied up more closely. They communicate more, and we should not forget that a business analyst builds a process according to which real people work on the ground. And if we're talking about managers, they work according to the process that was given to them, sent down by top-level guys, an instruction they have to adhere to. In large companies, a manager is an executor of instructions and processes. His task is to look after his subordinates, help them when needed, monitor their adaptation, create a favorable environment in the team for work. This is a manager. This is not a business analyst. A business analyst writes the requirements that are being implemented. The requirements, for example, for customers, like it is prohibited to spray the perfume you ordered at the order pickup point, because people will order just 5 or 6 bottles of perfume simultaneously to choose from. The business analyst thought that, well, why should customers open the bottles and damage the intact packaging, thereby complicating the sales process? And he wrote this process correctly from his point of view. And the manager who is there on site sees that conflicts arise with customers because they violate these conditions. Hence, we see that both are generally about the same thing, but also a little bit about different things, because not every business analyst realizes how the process works in the field in reality, and not every manager understands why we prohibited customers from spraying perfume. It would seem, why shouldn't they do it at their own pleasure? Like, what's the matter? But it turns out that the packaging gets damaged, and it is forbidden to sell the goods in damaged packaging. So can a business analyst move into management? Well, yes, he can. He knows the processes, and if he knows how to communicate with people, then of course it will be cool and he will succeed. Can he not move? Of course he can. He can simply grow horizontally, improving his competence in order to foresee such moments in advance. For example, in the case of perfume, maybe we need to attach an additional 5 milliliters bottle of this same perfume to each order. We can contact the supplier so that these 5 milliliters are additionally included in the box with the order. And if, for example, the first client does not want to buy it, then everyone who orders them next will use only these 5 milliliters and will easily choose the perfume for him or herself. This is already the level of a cool senior business analyst. The business analyst, in his connection with management, communicates with different managers in the company, collects feedback from them, like, how do the charts and diagrams I wrote work in reality? Managers can respond, like, hey, listen, you wrote it like this here, but it doesn't work at all. It's bullshit. I'm here on the ground and I'm telling you that it won't work like that. And that's it. The business analyst gets feedback and edits what he wrote earlier. Absolutely, just as you described it, and as you asked the question, direct interaction. And the systems analyst interacts a little less. He still works more with the system. Yes, as trivial as it may sound, if we're talking about communication between business analysts and systems analysts with teams, with managers, then of course, for a business analyst, it takes roughly 70% of his working time. And for a systems analyst, it takes approximately 50-60% of his working time, specifically communicating with managers and with real people in the field. For example, we have finalized the business process in such a way that it is necessary to transfer perfume into a larger box and put the 5 milliliters bottle of this perfume there, or even 1 milliliter conditionally. And the systems analyst will already say, we have an additional barcode. That is, we have to cover this gray box in which we put the perfume itself and the 5 milliliters with something in order to somehow identify it in the warehouse at the pickup point to understand what it is that is going. And the systems analyst will write and register the connection between the barcode of the perfume and the barcode on the box. And in the application, the warehouse employee who is engaged in repackaging will have an additional button to print the barcode of this product, for example. He tied these systems up, and the business analyst, in turn, will write how these perfumes will reach the consumer from the supplier. He will develop and document the path, the sequence of procedures from point A to point B. The systems analyst will connect the systems that will be linked to each other in order to deliver the goods. After all, we have to communicate with the client somewhere. This is one system. There is a warehouse management system. This is the second system. The delivery management system is the third system. The pickup point management system is the fourth system. They all exchange data with each other. Perfect, Andre. And let's also say a few words about risks and risk management. Here is a systems analyst or a business analyst, and does he or she work with risks at all? Does he take them into account in his work? What role might he play in the company's risk management? Well, let's imagine a simple example with the pickup point based on the case with perfume. Let's think about the reputational risks for the company when a conflict starts at the pickup point. Imagine that you go to pick up your sneakers and all of a sudden you see there's a fight happening there with swearing. Would you want to visit that pickup point a second time? Well, maybe you'll give it a chance, but what if there's constant fighting there and abuse? Well, even hardly possible. Why would you go to a toxic environment, right? In other words, is there a risk when a business analyst builds a new business process? There is. But is there a risk for a systems analyst? If, for example, some button takes a long time to load on a website, or you click the cancel order button and the money is not returned to your cart because the systems analyst did not specify the interaction between the bank and your company. Long story short, does risk management have a place in analysts' work? Yes, it does. But there is no full, complete risk management as such, with financial and reputational assessment. management. Analysts do not do this. There are separate risk management employees who specifically calculate such moments and how they will affect us. If, for example, we continue to supply perfumes in the new way, then risk management will calculate that we earn 0.01% of the total turnover from the perfume category. So maybe we should refuse. The reputational risks are these, and our profit is that, and so on. Sure thing, it is absolutely better for a business analyst and systems analyst to do their job, and then a separate specialist, observing from the side, will say, well, let's adjust this whole story. This is not the core activity of an analyst. Yeah. Andrei, thank you very much for taking part in this conversation. I suppose you guys enjoyed the discussion, but please don't forget that this video is also part of your assignment, and now you'll have to push yourself a little. Well, thank you, and see you later. До встречи с вами.